We gotta keep moving. You gotta keep moving through these shifting energies. You know, it's been heavy. It's been heavy lately. Although I ain't spoke on it, I've been aware of it, and I'm sure some of y'all have too. You hear me? I'm sure some of y'all have too, especially those of us who stand consistent in our inner work, self-work, shadow work process. You hear me? And consistency is key. You know, that's my only routine. I used to have a lot of routines, and I was asked. I can't remember who asked the question in the comment section, but somebody asked what's my routine. I used to have many, but today my only routine is consistency. You hear me? Consistency. Consistency always better than doing nothing. You hear me? So I'm always fine, and to add on to that, and being consistent, you also want to add different various ways of doing things. Variety help. Otherwise, you get caught in the routines, and once you get caught in the routine, then you get bored of the routine that you don't find yourself getting caught in, and start slacking up, no matter how much it may have been working for you previously. So for variety helps too, you know. But consistency, let consistency be your routine. You hear me? You know, if y'all don't catch nothing else, I hope y'all catch that. And yeah, where we gonna go today? I want to say, depending on what success is to you and what that may look like for you, it's not hard to look successful. And many people are successful just as well as many people are looking successful. Y'all may say, why am I saying that? Or what's the point? But if you've been around long enough, you know it is one. It's always a bigger picture anytime I say something. But I say that because, as I said, it's not hard to look successful, and many people are successful on the outside. But on the inside, they fractured and fragmented. And my purpose of sharing that was because if you're here on the other side of these words, you don't want to be one of them people. Trust me. Trust me. Because you just don't want to be one of them people. So get it as much on the inside as you trying to get it on the outside. Because remember, one person in alignment worth a million who not. You hear me? And it's a million who not. You heard? You know, I don't never know what I'm gonna talk about. Like I said, my routine is just consistency. I don't never and I don't never know what I'm gonna talk about till it start coming to me. You know, just like you, I pick up on things all day long, all the time. You know, then I have to sift it up and choose what I'm gonna talk about. You know, and no matter what I talk about, as I just said previously, it's always a bigger picture. You know, so we're gonna talk about something today. You hear me? Regardless of where it takes us. And I say that because if you have ever prayed the prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's a lot of key words in that, and we're gonna need to be aware of all those key words to know the difference in the change that we're trying to make. If you don't listen, you're gonna miss it. And I say that to say, or ask this: how well do we identify the indicators of what cannot be changed, what can be changed, in order to have the wisdom to know the difference? Because in having the wisdom to know the difference, it's going to take being informed, and then being informed require having knowledge, and that's not in that prayer. You hear me? It's something you have to figure out, you know, through your journey. So how well do we identify the indicators, although they're always present? You know, you ever find yourself saying, I don't know how this happened, but all the indicators that led to it happening was right before you, regardless of who, what, where, or whatever the case may be. All the indicators be right there present, but most times we just don't see them, you know. And as I marinated in that and on that, you know, the more it spoke to me in the ways that I'm gonna speak to us today. Because we have a tendency to always want to be the hero, you know, especially when it involves something outside of us. But it takes courage, it takes acceptance, and it takes wisdom to be the heroes for ourselves, you hear me, in our own lives. Because we can't control everything outside of us. And since we can't control everything outside of us, it's so important that we be selfish enough to keep control of ourselves, you hear me? Because it'll have you in something that you don't want, it'll have you in something or somewhere that you don't want to find yourself in or at, you hear me? So you got to be selfish enough to keep control in yourself and of yourself, because there's always something capable of pulling us outside ourselves. And for me personally, I found, you know, when you ain't got no attachments to who you are, and listen close, or you gonna take it wrong. When you ain't got no attachments to who you are, it's, you know, the more you become who you are, it's easy for others to get lost in the translation of what you are. You hear me? And I can appreciate that in a way that I couldn't before, because I appreciate myself. I appreciate the changes, you know. I appreciate the transformations, you know, that I've made in ways that I never could. And part of rebuilding my life was rebuilding myself. I hope somebody caught that. Because part of rebuilding your life is rebuilding yourself. So you got to be selfish. You got to be willing to be selfish enough to keep yourself in control. You know, that requires awareness, self-awareness. That requires discipline, self-discipline. That requires balance, self-balance. That requires intelligence, self-intelligence. That requires honesty, self-honesty. Some y'all who've been around familiar with one of my mottos, you know, you got to be brutally honest with yourself, you know, and that requires confidence, self-confidence, and that requires, like in the Serenity Prayer, acceptance, self-acceptance. It requires commitment, self-commitment. It requires loyalty, self-loyalty, you know. It requires courage, self-courage, you know. It requires love, self-love. It requires care, self-care. It requires boundaries, self-boundaries, as well as external boundaries, you know. It requires devotion, self-devotion, you know. It requires value, self-value. It requires security, self-security. It requires worth, self-worth, you know. It requires not trying to do too much, because trying to do too much will have you off track, you hear me? So just do your best and let your best be enough, you hear me? And that requires knowing that you can't please everybody, and knowing that you're not going to please everybody, no matter how well your intentions, and regardless of what you do. Even the best intentions, as we have heard, if you have heard it, you know, the road to hell are paved with good intentions. So you can't please everybody. We're not responsible for the feelings of others, happiness, or we're not responsible for the happiness of others. They are, you hear me? But we are responsible for the feelings and happiness and joy and ability to feel good for no reason at all within ourselves. And a whole bunch of, more high vibrational emotions that we can tap into once we're in that space. You hear me? And that require accountability, self-accountability, that require responsibility, self-responsibility, because it ain't always somebody else's fault. And most things not, especially when it comes to how we feel. You hear me? It may require patience, self-patience, it requires listening to our intuition. So we're going to have to know how to be quiet within, or know how to quiet the noise within when there's so much noise going on all the time, all day long. You hear me? Even when we sleep, but in that sleepful, in our restful state, a lot of the noise cease, but it's still going on. For those that know, but it's just not as aware to the conscious as it is when we're consciously awake. You hear me? I'm just sharing these things because just like birth, it's a process. It's a process just like birth to adulthood. And we go through these processes step by step, moment to moment. You hear me? So forth and so on. And life could be as challenging as it is pleasant. Ain't always, as y'all notice, ain't always jagged on the edge. You hear me? Sometimes it's smooth. It don't feel so. I can speak some harsh truths, but all the time ain't gonna be like that. Cause like I say, I move as I'm led to move. And I speak, as I'm led to. So everything ain't gonna always appear the same way. So don't judge me the way you judge yourself. You hear me? It's always something to learn, and it's always bigger. It's always a bigger picture than what I'm presenting. You heard? But yeah, life could be as challenging as it could be pleasant. So all I do, I'm always trying to present things from various levels to give us an opportunity to discern or feel our way through certain things, that give us insight on different situations, and remind us that there are always choices available to each and every one of us. We always got a choice. If you're able to choose, you got a choice, and anything, different things that I prevent, it may spark insights or spark aha moments, to make us see further than some of the situations, or circumstances, or conditions that we may find ourselves, and even look at things in ways that we may have not considered previously, I said that to say, family, every day has options and possibilities. Every day has options and possibilities. And maybe, hopefully, intentionally, maybe something I said will offer some clarity or understanding, you hear me, that we didn't previously have. You heard? I ain't come to stay long. I came through to just drop something on us, you know, leave a turd stain on our brain. You hear me? You know, and all you do, color yourself beautiful. You know, I notice it can't with these. You can't really see my shirt, but it say color me beautiful, color yourself beautiful. You know what I'm saying? It's always a bigger picture. You know, remember self-work counts. You know, you don't wanna become you don't wanna become your shadow in a negative state. You know, you don't wanna become your shadow in a negative state. And many of us, me for a long time, I lived in my shadow. You know, because I hadn't integrated it. You know, and most of the times when I was living from that space, it's because that's who I thought I was. You know, like many of us, you know, when it's only a part of who we are and what we are becoming. You know, so our actions and our choices today affect the future through the present. You know, be aware to be present. Know how you're moving. You know how you're moving. You know, I'm known to say a lot of things that's controversial to who and what others believe in or know themselves to be and believe that they are. That's okay. That's neither here nor there. You know, but anybody can learn something from somebody. You heard? So, as I said earlier, maybe something I say or have said will offer some clarity or some further understanding. You hear me? And with that, thanks for it all. Like, shares, comments, questions, love offerings, donations, you know, recent purchases. Shout out to Sawools, so forth and so on. If you got something you want to share, drop it in the comment section. It may be a benefit or help or assistance to someone else that come through and put time in to actually read the comment sections, because y'all be dropping jewels too, and I salute you all who do, and I appreciate you for that, because like I said, it help others on their way, continue to command change over your life, you know, and take it one day at a time, one step at a time. It's a process, you hear me? Until we do it again, I'm known as Zawu. Be you how you be you. Stillness, abundance, love, light, health, and wholeness to the common content family and soul tribe. New subscribers, welcome to the family. Peekaboos and passerbys. Until we do it again, be you how you be you. Love.